Worry about where comedy is going?
Not greatly, because it's a cyclical thing. You know, 1 minute, certain jokes or certain attitudes and outlooks are just out of fashion. And in the end, the whole point of a joke is to entertain people. And if people are not entertained, then you haven't fulfilled your brief. And so I'm a great believer that we must have free expression, and in comedy you must be able to make jokes about absolutely anything. I mean, the only question is you would be wise to choose a context in which it's going to be appreciated, because not all jokes suit all contexts. The joke you tell around a table in a restaurant with some friends is not necessarily something for primetime TV. That's a pretty obvious statement, but you'd be surprised how people like to abuse the context of comedy. And people often say, did you hear that joke that comedian said in that Netflix special? Did you think that was right or wrong? And all I say is, I wasn't there. I haven't heard the joke. I wasn't in the audience when the comedian said it. I don't know what the atmosphere was in the room. If people pay to see a comedian, they've got to accept whatever they provide. I'm a great believer that artists should never apologize for their art. You put something out there, you paint a watercolor, you make a joke, you make a television show, whatever it is. If people are offended, that's their problem. It's not yours. You've done your bit. If they don't want you to work for them again, then that may become your problem. But you've done your bit, and you've done your best, and it's up to the audience to judge. I'm a great believer that if a joke has an appreciative audience, no matter how small, no matter who they are, then it is worthy. It should be, as it were.
Comedy now comes with a side of apology. Rowan Atkinson's radical idea is simple. Let people laugh without overthinking.
Starting point when it comes to the consideration of any issue relating to free speech is my passionate belief that the second most precious thing in life is the right to express yourself freely. The most precious thing in life, I think, is food in your mouth. And the third most precious is a roof over your head. But a fixture for me in the number 2 slot is free expression, just below the need to sustain life itself. That is because I have enjoyed free expression in this country all my professional life, and fully expect to continue to do so. Personally, I suspect highly unlikely to be arrested for whatever laws exist to contain free expression, because of the undoubtedly privileged position that is afforded to those of a high public profile. So my concerns are less for myself and more for those more vulnerable because of their lower profile. Like the man arrested in Oxford for calling a police horse gay, or the teenager arrested for calling the Church of Scientology a cult, or the cafe owner arrested for displaying passages from the Bible on a TV screen. When I heard of some of these more ludicrous offences and charges, I remembered that I had been here before in a fictional context. I once did a show called Not the 9 O'Clock News some years ago, and we did a sketch where Griff Rhys-Jones played Constable Savage, a manifestly racist police officer to whom I, as his station commander, is giving a dressing down for arresting a black man on a whole string of ridiculous, trumped up and ludicrous charges. The charges for which Constable Savage arrested Mr. Winston Kadogo of 55 Mercer Road were these: walking on the cracks in the pavement, walking in a loud shirt in a built-up area during the hours of darkness, and one of my favorites, walking around all over the place. He was also arrested for urinating in a public convenience and looking at me in a funny way. Who would have thought that we would end up with a law that would allow life to imitate art so exactly?
Free speech is vital, but now we're arresting people for calling a horse gay. When we start punishing words, we've lost all sense of reason.
The problem with the outlawing of insult is that too many things can be interpreted as such. Criticism is easily construed as insult by certain parties. Ridicule easily construed as insult. Sarcasm, unfavourable comparison, merely stating an alternative point of view to the orthodoxy can be interpreted as insult. And because so many things can be interpreted as insult, it is hardly surprising that so many things have been, as the examples I talked about earlier show. Although the law under discussion has been on the statute book for over 25 years, it is indicative of a culture that has taken hold of the programs of successive governments, that with the reasonable and well-intentioned ambition to contain obnoxious elements in society, has created a society of an extraordinarily authoritarian and controlling nature. That is what you might call the new intolerance, a new but intense desire to gag uncomfortable voices.
If this is the way forward, guess we're just one step away from banning common sense. Now let's find out what Rowan sees as the solution.
I'm not intolerant, say many people, say many softly spoken, highly educated, liberal-minded people. I'm only intolerant of intolerance. And people tend to nod sagely and say, oh yes, wise words, wise words. And yet if you think about this supposedly inarguable statement for longer than 5 seconds, you realize that all it is advocating is the replacement of one kind of intolerance with another, which to me doesn't represent any kind of progress at all. Underlying prejudices, injustices, or resentments are not addressed by arresting people. They are addressed by the issues being aired, argued, and dealt with, preferably outside the legal process. For me, the best way to increase society's resistance to insulting or offensive speech is to allow a lot more of it. As with childhood diseases, you can better resist those germs to which you have been exposed. We need to build our immunity to taking offense so that we can deal with the issues that perfectly justified criticism can raise. Our priority should be to deal with the message, not the messenger. As President Obama said in an address to the United Nations only a month or so ago, laudable efforts to restrict speech can become a tool to silence critics or oppress minorities. The strongest weapon against hateful speech is not repression, it is more speech. And that's the essence of my thesis, more.
Clearly, progress comes from facing tough ideas, not silencing them. Resilience to offense strengthens real dialogue.
Well, there's been quite a fight back around the world recently against the bullies and woke warriors trying to redefine free speech. And isn't it great when the bullies get some of their own back? Rowan Atkinson, the star of Blackadder and, of course, Mr. Bean, is the latest big name to condemn the rise of cancel culture. I love Mr. Bean, by the way. Atkinson compared these keyboard warriors to a medieval mob roaming the streets looking for someone to burn.
Atkinson has also been outspoken about the growing influence of cancel culture, viewing it as a direct result of woke ideology.
As Lord Dear says, the freedom to be inoffensive is no freedom at all. The repeal of this word in this clause will be only a small step, but it will, I hope, be a critical one in what should be a longer-term project to pause and slowly rewind a creeping culture of censoriousness. It is a small skirmish in the battle, in my opinion, to deal with what Sir Salman Rushdie refers to as the outrage industry. Self-appointed arbiters of the public good, encouraging media-stoked outrage to which the police feel under terrible pressure to react. A newspaper rings up Scotland Yard. Someone has said something slightly insulting on Twitter about someone who we think a national treasure. What are you going to do about it? The police panic and they scrabble around and then grasp the most inappropriate lifeline of all, Section 5 of the Public Order Act, that thing where you can arrest anybody for saying anything that might be construed by anyone else as insulting. They don't seem to need a real victim. They need only to make the judgment that somebody could have been offended if they had heard or read what has been said. The most ludicrous degree of latitude.
So obviously, if we start policing every offense, it will slowly erode free speech. And at this rate, speaking our mind could soon become a crime. So what do you think? Is free speech getting strangled by the cancel culture mob, or is society just in need of a little more tolerance for tough conversations? Rowan Atkinson clearly thinks we're heading in the wrong direction. But hey, it's your call. Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Until next time.